Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing? Well, I went and got a fountain pop with Tanya. And I got all the way over to her house and dropped her off, and I got ready to vlog. And I realized I had forgotten my camera. But the thing is that I looked around the house when I was leaving tonight, and I couldn't find my camera. And so I was like, well, I don't know where my camera is. And so I drove all the way home, and I'm looking around, and I still can't find my camera. And I'm like, where is my camera? And so, anyway, it was underneath my hat. I put my hat over my camera. I don't know why, but my camera was hide and seek, underneath my hat. Hide and seek. Do you remember playing games as kids like that? We could play them for hours. I live like a block from where my Aunt Kathy and Uncle Dave lived when I was growing up. And they lived like 2 streets over. And across the street was this woman named B, I think was her name. Like B. Arthur, B. And she was really nice. And I remember she had these little poodle dolls. And she had those bushes in her front yard, you know, and around she had a pool, so she had an in-ground pool. And it was like a really nice pool, and her house was very like white Hollywood kind of looking, and I loved this house. And she had all of those, oh, what are they called? Topiaries, I think they're called. You know what I'm talking about? Like those bushes that you see like at Versailles and stuff like that, you know, like French like castles and chateaus. She had those like around her pool and around the front of her house. And then she had this little gate on the side of her house, and we would go over there, Caroline and I and Caroline's friends. I don't know how, I was young, like probably 6 something, and like 5 to 8, 5 to 10 maybe, when we would do this. And we would go over there, and I remember we would play games. And I remember we would play this one game where you had to like run off the diving board, and then somebody would like ask you a question. So I'm like, I love to swim. Love to be in the pool. I till this day, like Alex always jokes, he's like, Peter's like the only person that can spend like hours in the pool. Well, not right now, because it's currently 49 degrees. It is freezing in Indianapolis. Tanya told me that we're like 2 degrees away from like hitting some record of it being so low in June. It's like cold tonight. But I love to swim, and I can just be in the pool for hours doing handstands and diving and all kinds of stuff. I mean, even at my age today, I still love that. And when you're an only child, you learn to play in a pool by yourself, you know. And I can remember my dad, because my dad had a pool when I was growing up. So he would just sit out there and like read a book or read a magazine or something, and I would just play for hours in the pool by myself. But anyway, we used to play this game where you had to like run off the diving board, and well, we would play jump or dive, which like you would run and then they would say jump, but you had to like go off the diving board, and like, or right when you got to the end, they would say jump or dive. Do you guys remember that game? And then you either had to like jump or dive. And so half the times it looked like this. It was real funny. And then we would do this other game where like as you were running, they would like shout a question, but you couldn't stop. Like they would shout a question at you, like, what's your favorite pop? 7-Up. And then you would like jump in the pool. And we used to do this thing where we had to like, they would like shout out somebody that was famous, and we had to act like them when we were jumping off the pool. So they'd be like the Fonz, and we would go like this, like we were holding up our collar like the Fonz. And we used to play all these games for hours in the pool. I loved it. And And then we would come home and eat dinner. Those were like the weekends that my mom would just like, she'd pack us a bag and we would go over to my aunt and uncle's and just stay there the whole weekend because I think she was so lonely. And we would sleep in Caroline's room, and there was a bedroom in the basement too. Caroline eventually moved to the basement, but my mom and I would sleep in Caroline's room. And I remember like having my pajamas on, and like we would eat dinner, and then Caroline and I would put our pajamas on, and then we would like all like watch a movie, and then we would go to sleep. It was fun. I loved summers when I was a kid. I think my mom too, you know, like my mom was always like, she drank wine, she drank like mixed drinks, like my mom loved martinis. She drank like gin and tonics for a long time. Both of my parents, like all of them, drank gin and tonics for a long time, but my mom was a big beer drinker. She loved to drink beer. And I remember going over to my aunt and uncle's house, and they had a refrigerator in the garage, and it was always stocked with like, you know, like Diet Coke always. I mean, up till when they passed away, they always had tons of, they always had a refrigerator in their garage, you know, and they would have Diet Coke and whatever, but then they also had like tons of beer in the refrigerator. And I can remember, so like when Caroline and I would go to bed, oh, I remember now. Okay, so Caroline had like I think she had like 2 twin beds in her bedroom, and then a day bed by the window. And I would sleep in the day bed by the window. And my mom would sleep in one of the twin beds, and Caroline would sleep in her bed, obviously. But I can remember, like, from where I would sleep in the day bed, I could see, so like, Caroline's door was like this, my aunt and uncle's bedroom door was like this, because they lived in a 1-story house. And from where I slept, like with my head, I could see, I forgot about that day bed. I loved that day bed. I could see my mom like go out of the bedroom, and then she would go and like go into the kitchen, and then she would come back. And my aunt and uncle, like they had this huge king size bed, and like, you know, a TV, and like their bedroom was huge, and they had this TV, and then like they had this little like white wicker couch with like a table, and my mom would sit there, and she would like, do you remember when people smoked in the house? And my mom would sit there and smoke cigarettes and drink beer. And I remember she used to say that it scared her because my aunt would sleep, or she would sit in bed and she would smoke in bed. And then my mom would look over, and my aunt would be like asleep holding her cigarette, and like the ash would be real long. And my uncle and my mom would stay up late and watch movies, and my aunt would fall asleep in the bed. Isn't it the funny things you remember? But we would do that a lot on the weekends, and then through the week, in the summers, I always played, like I went to a tennis camp here in town, and the tennis camp was like really early. I don't remember what time it started, but it was early. I remember I had to be up really early for it. I know how early it was because it was like several hours. It was like 4 or 5 hours. I think it was like from 7 to noon or 7 to 11 because we had to do conditioning for like an hour. And we would like, they would have us run laps and like all kinds of conditioning stuff. And I mean, this tennis camp, it was at North Central High School. I don't know if they still have it. They had it for years and years and years and years. The woman that ran it, she's still here in town, but like her family, like her kids, like I know like one of her sons and his wife and their kids, and really nice family, and they're like family friends of ours, and so I used to go to that tennis camp in the summer. I always had a hard time making friends no matter where I was, you know, like, I was always, it's interesting because as I get older, my social anxieties, it's not just that I'm socially, like, have social anxiety, it's like I have social awkwardness, you know, like, I always say the wrong thing, like, I always say things that, like, I think to other people are weird or goofy or, you know what I mean, I'm just kind of weird and nerdy, I always have been. And so I always just say things that are kind of, like, do you ever say something and then you're like, God, I would, like, not offensive, I'm not talking about offensive things, but like, you laugh a certain way, or you snort, or you know what I mean, like you know what I mean, or you say something, and then like after you say it, you're like, oh, that sounded so dumb, I wish I hadn't said that. Like, I've always been like that. And I just never made a lot of friends when I was growing up. And I remember this one year that I was like in 4th or 5th grade, and I had one friend that whole summer, like just one friend that was on the tennis team with me, and he and I were real close. And I don't even remember who he was or anything about him. I just remember that I had this one friend. And so every year they would, like, at the end of the summer, the woman that had this tennis camp, she was real famous for it, she would have it, she had this like ginormous house with like a pool, huge in-ground pool, and like, I think it was like an Olympic size, not Olympic size pool, but it was huge. They had like laps, you know, and stuff. And then she had like 2 tennis courts or 4 tennis courts or something like that. Her house was massive. Well, she would have this huge party at the end every year. And this camp was for kids from kindergarten all the way through like their senior years in high school. It was like a really big deal, and it was competitive. So like at the end of every year, you would do like a round robin, you know, like for each age. And so like each age group, you know, they would have like, you know, 1st and 2nd grade, 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade, and then they would have like a, you know, elementary school winner, a middle school winner, and then like a, you know, high school winner. And so like we always did this like round robin at the end of the year. But I had this one friend, and I don't really remember anything about him. I mean, I just don't remember anything about this friend, but I remember that I didn't want to go to this thing. And because I didn't know anybody, and I was just going to be there alone, and like depending on what grade you were supposed to like bring like a thing, and whatever grade I was in, we were supposed to bring a dessert. And I was always embarrassed by like everything that happened. I just was always shy, and I know that's hard to believe, but I was like super shy as a kid. Around people that I didn't know, I was always like painfully shy. And I didn't want to go. I just like did not. And my mom was like, it'll be really good for you. These are your friends. You've been with them all summer long, you know. But my mom had no idea that like it was me by myself. Like, yeah, I was playing tennis all the time, but I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't have any friends. And I just don't think that she knew that, you know. Because she would say like, oh, how was it today? And I'd say, oh, it was great, Mom, you know. So my friend said that he was going to go to this thing. And so my mom was like, well, you should go. It'll be fun. And, you know, you guys, he's been... like, he really, you know, has like, you guys have been good friends this summer. He means a lot to you. This is the last time you're going to see him. I think he wasn't going to come back again, or they were moving. His family was moving or something. And so I was like, okay. And like, we agreed that we were going to meet at this thing. And I remember my mom made this fruit pizza, and it was like in this like glass plate, and it was like, you know, I don't know, it was like a pizza, but it was like all fruit. And so it was like on these tables where they had all this food and stuff like that. And I remember I got there and I sat by the pool the entire night. My friend never showed up. I never saw him again. I don't think I ever talked to him again. I don't remember. I really don't remember. I've told this story in here before. And he just didn't show up. But I remember that they were playing that song by the Motels, like Only the Lonely or something lonely. And I remember for the longest time, like, that song reminded me of that, because I can remember sitting there and being like, thinking to myself, like, I don't have any friends, like, I'm lonely. It's really weird, like, my whole life, like, when I was younger, I didn't really, like, this thought never occurred to me, but as I got older, like, I remember when I started getting really interested in going to psychics and stuff, and I went to, like, my first couple psychics, and they would talk about life cycles, or if I would read books and they would talk about life cycles, I've always had this feeling that this is my last life cycle here, like, ever, because everything that's ended in my life, I've really struggled with endings. Tanya was saying I'm talking different tonight. I bit the inside of my mouth, if you haven't watched the last couple of vlogs, when I was sleeping the other night, and it is, like, inflamed inside. It's, like, huge. And I'm, like, trying to talk around it because I've bitten into it, like, 3 times today. But, like, anything that I've had, I'll give you a couple more examples, but, you know, in my life, I've always, like, like, even when we go on a trip, I'm always like, goodbye, hotel room. Like, you know, like, I've had such a hard time with endings in my life. I don't do endings well at all. I don't like to say goodbye to things. And endings I've always really struggled with it. My friends in high school even joked, because I would never listen to, like, the end of a song. I would, like, rewind it, or, like, I'd get almost to the end of the song, and then I would rewind it, or I would, like, move it to the next song, and my friends would laugh. They'd be like, you can't even listen to a whole song. But so anyway, I remember, like, my mom pulled up in the driveway and I saw her car, or somebody was like, your mom is here, she's looking for you or something. And so I went to go get her pizza, and nobody had eaten any of it, like, not one person. And I didn't want my mom's feelings to get hurt, so I remember I chucked the whole pizza, like, into the bush and took her plate and told her that, like, everybody liked her pizza or something. And she's like, did you have a good time? And I just was, like, so upset, I remember. But I never told my mom that I was upset. Like, I remember later in life, like in my 20s, when I would tell her, like, I was bullied horribly, or I was so, like, she didn't know any of that. Like, I protected her from that because I didn't want her to feel like, I don't know why I got this at a young age. I have no clue where it came from. But I was worried that if my mom knew that I was suffering, that she loved me so much, that she would worry about me, or she would think that she was doing something wrong. Because my mom was just, like, such a guilt-ridden person constantly. You know, if something happened, she'd be like, well, what could I have done to do better? Or, like, why, you know, like, like, you know, if I could have taken away, I would. And so I kind of knew that, like, if I had talked to her about being bullied, like, she would have made it her mission, you know, to, I don't know, I guess it's kind of weird when I look back on it, you know, that, you know, we tell kids, if you're being bullied, talk to somebody about it. But it wasn't, like, fear of, like, they were going to bully me harder, because honestly, they probably couldn't have, you know. I mean, I can't think of how much worse it could have gotten. But, it's packed in Broderville tonight. I mean, I really couldn't have gotten any much worse than it already was. And, I don't know, I think I did it out of protecting her. I mean, I honestly think, like, I just didn't want my mom to suffer. I think I was afraid of her being upset because she felt like she was a bad mom, or, you know, she was so worried about me or something. I don't know. So I remember that. And then I remember my elementary school that I went to, the one that I was... I mean, it's weird when I talk about bullying because it was different during each period of my life. Like, elementary school, I was called a lot of names. Actually, sitting here thinking about it is interesting. Well, let me tell the story first, the ending. So I didn't love elementary school, but I didn't hate it either. Like, there were periods of it. Like, there were teachers that I liked a lot. There were classrooms that I felt very safe in. There were really good times that I had. I had this 4th grade teacher that I just loved. And, you know, she would read books to us. And one of the books that she read to us was Help I'm a Prisoner in the Library by F. Clifford. And it was about these 2 girls that go into this library. I love this book. And there just were a lot of things about elementary school that I liked. But I would say that as far as being bullied, because A, I wasn't used to it, and B, because kids, the younger I think that they didn't understand, or there was, like, literally no compassion, you know, whatsoever. So they just knew different, and so they were cruel because of that. And I think I didn't have the backbone that I had by the time that I got to high school, which I didn't have much of a backbone as far as standing up to others, but I had a backbone as far as not allowing... Like, I was almost kind of a little immune to a lot of the cruelty by then because it had been happening for 10 to 12 years of my life, you know what I mean? And then middle school was weird. Like, I wasn't, like, really, like, 6th grade, I had a lot of fun. 6th grade was, like, all of the elementary schools, you know, joined together. And so there were a lot of kids that I didn't know that didn't know me. I made a lot of friends that year. We were all like, there was like a group of 30 of us that were like all in the same classes together because we just moved like as one unit, you know, through all the classes. So I wasn't bullied as bad as I had been in 6th grade, you know, before. And I had 2 girls that I was like really, really close with. And one of them ended up being my supposed girlfriend. And I don't know, it just like, you know, 6th grade wasn't bad, it was fun. But then those girls that I was really good friends with, we came back in 7th grade and I wasn't friends with them anymore. Like, one got real involved in one thing and one got really involved in another thing, and I just wasn't friends with them anymore. Like, they just like kind of left me. And I didn't really have any girlfriends anymore. I remember this one thing that happened, like, so we had to take, like, I don't know what they would have been called, but they would have been like what home ec and like shop and things like that were in. I sanded my my thumb in shop. I was like, we were doing something and we're supposed to like hold it down against something, and my thumb went like that, and I shaved off like all this skin, and it was blood everywhere and stuff. It was like this huge deal in school. And so like after that in shop, I didn't have to do anything, but we did like take 2 they were like resource classes or something, and like everybody took all this different stuff, and I ended up taking like home ec cooking or something, because these girls, when we like made the schedules in 6th grade, they told me they were going to take it, and I got into that class, and they were not in that class. Oh, no. Maybe like one of them was or something and wasn't friends with me. She just decided she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. Like, she stopped talking to me completely. I mean, it was that, you want to talk about cruelty? That was so cruel. And I remember being in that class, and like girls, I was like literally like, the only other guy was like this like jockish athlete that took it for just like shits and giggles. And I remember like all the girls were like, why are you in here? Sometimes my biggest bullies were girls. I know that's hard to believe. Not all, I mean, girls were very nice to me. If it wasn't for girls, I wouldn't have had many friends growing up at all. But sometimes girls were just as cruel to me as guys were, if not worse. A lot of guys just kind of left me alone, but some of the girls would call out the differences, you know? They'd be like, why do you dress like that? Or why do you care so much about how you dress? Or why do you care about your hair? Like, that's weird, you know? Like, that girls would say stuff like that to me. Whereas the older I got with guys, like, they wouldn't, like, especially in junior high, they just avoided me. So the bullying that I suffered in junior high was isolation, that I was just completely isolated. Like, nobody really talked to me. I didn't really have any friends. 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, I just like had no friends, like none. And it was friggin' lonely. And it was hard. It was like really, really hard. And I didn't, you know. And then 9th grade was when I kind of made friends, because I started sitting with those girls at lunch. But the funny thing about elementary school is this, is that, so I was a crossing guard my 5th grade year at elementary school. That was where we like wear those white things, and then we would help like, you know, the teachers, like, we would help like the adult crossing guard, like, you know, stop traffic and stuff. So we got to help with that. And I was so excited because I was a walker. So there was walkers and bus riders, and I was a walker because I lived in distance to the school. And I remember the last day, like, there were like 2 or 3 crossing guards. There was like one at each like section. There was like 3 crossing guards, like one at each section, where they were like the, what do you call it? The camera just, it was at 23 minutes and whatever, that's why it stopped. But anyway, there was like 3 streets, and so there was like a crossing guard for each one. And when I was done, I had to like take the white thing back that I would wear. And I remember I went into the school, and there was like nobody left, like the teachers were gone and stuff, or leaving. And I had to go in the principal's office, and it was like the school was quiet. And this had been my school for 5 years, you know, 6 years with with kindergarten. And I remember like I left that school. Now this is 5th grade, you guys. I'm 10, okay? And I remember saying, as I walked out of school, you know, goodbye to my school, and that I was never going to see it again. And I knew like, I knew, like, I had this weird feeling in my heart of hearts. I was like, I'm never going to see this school again. Like, I'm never going to be, like, coming through these doors again. I'm not a student here. You know, and it wasn't like this exhilaration of, like, graduating from elementary school. We didn't have any kind of graduation, but it wasn't like that, you know? Like, I was excited to, like, it was like this sadness, this longing that I had for this life that it was over. That, you know, it was now, like, a new thing. And, I'm trying to adjust this there. And I was scared to death to go to junior high, which was literally right down the street. And it just was really, really scary to me. And I remember, like, getting across, like, the main street to, like, where I would walk, and just, like, at halfway mark, I just, like, started running all the way. I was so sad. Like, and I just can remember crying and stuff. And that last day, like, all the, like, the endings, you know? And then junior high, like I said, you know, 6th grade was what it was. And those girls, like, we hung out together that whole summer, like almost the whole summer. I even remember this one girl, her mom and my mom and I, all the 4 of us, went to Chicago because they had, like, a friend or, like, a business associate that had a condo in the Sears Tower. And we went up there and stayed in the Sears Tower with them, and we went school clothes shopping in Chicago, and it was, like, such a fun weekend. I think she had, like, a camp or something she had to go to, and so we came back, and that was, like, the first week of August. And then we came back, she went to camp, and then the other girl, like, she went on a family vacation at the same time this girl went on camp. It was almost like they had talked or something. It was weird. And then when they came back, like, I didn't talk to them before. I can remember trying to, like, call them and stuff, and they didn't call me back. And, like, I went to school for 7th grade thinking we were the 3 of us. Like, I mean, we were really, really close, and it was done. Like, they didn't talk to me anymore. Like, we were not friends. They would, like, say hi kind of, like, in the halls and stuff, but, like, I don't know. I don't know what happened, you know? Maybe they thought they should be friends with girls, and maybe they had heard a lot about me, and, you know. That was really painful. But that one girl I'm friends with today, we're both in a 12-step program together. But, and they don't have any, you know, animosity towards her, obviously. She's one of my dear friends. I love seeing her. And, I think it's funny that we both ended up in a 12-step program together, but, and then when I graduated, well, we didn't have a graduation. You know, like, people have, like, graduations from elementary school, junior high. We didn't have any of that. 8th grade graduation. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff. But my junior high was 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And by 9th grade, I had kind of come into my own style a little bit. I was kind of different. And still was playing tennis. And that was, like, a big part of my life. But not at school. And I got recruited to play. Like, I was a really good tennis player. I just stopped one day. I've told that story on here before. I'll tell it again sometime. But, I mean, I had played since I was, like, 5 and had, you know, private coaches and stuff. But anyway, but I didn't play at the school in junior high. I played, like, well, I didn't play, like, on a team at school. I played, you know, like, league tennis and stuff like that. But I remember it was funny because this guy, he's still in town here, and he is, like, a huge tennis coach here in town. Like, he's a private coach. And he went on to kind of, like, play nationally a little bit, professionally. And, like, he didn't really go far with it, but he did. And, like, if you say his name here, people are like, oh, yeah, like, he's, like, a big deal tennis player. And I remember we were in this league together forever. And, he ended up going to, like, a different school here in Indianapolis. But in that league, we were always, like, I mean to tell you, from, like, 1st grade on, like, all the way through, like, my 10th grade year, 9th grade year, we were always 1 and 2. And I was always 1 and he was 2. I beat him every time. Like, we were always 1 and 2. And it always, whenever I watch Dance Moms, like, Chloe and Maddie always remind me of us. And because we were like frenemies, kind of like we were friends, but like we were extremely competitive with each other. And our coach that we had, because we consistently had the same coach, he would pit us against each other, so we were always number one, like we would play singles against each other, and he would always pit us against each other. And like our parents always wanted us to be like on a doubles team, and they would never put us on a doubles team together. I was not big into doubles. I played doubles sometimes, but he and I were not on a doubles team together. And we would have been good doubles team, but anyway, when I was in high school, so I played 1 year and I hated it. I just hated everything about it. And but he was number one for the state of Indiana in tennis. Like he was number one. Like he took like letter number one or whatever that is. He won like state singles tennis. I always thought I always wondered, like that was the one thing that I always wondered, like if I had played, you know, if I would have like won, you know, and would that have changed how people looked at me? I remember, you know, when you take gym, your sophomore, we had to take it like one semester, like our sophomore year in high school. And I remember my gym class, of course, was filled with athletes, football players, and all kinds of stuff, you know, that thought like, oh, I'm great at one sport, which means I'm great at everything. And they kind of looked down on tennis and stuff. And this one guy was like beating everybody. And I was like my number wasn't up. And I remember I got out there and I just floored him. And I remember after that, he just was like that. And then there was this one thing that happened where, so when we would play baseball in like high school gym, I didn't have to do the whole semester of gym. I ended up becoming my, all these stories I'm going to save for later. But anyway, I ended up becoming the assistant to the teacher. It was fine by me. But anyway, he was actually the football coach. And I have to just say, his name, I think he's passed away now. His name was Jim Belden. And he was such a fantastic guy. And he knew, like, he was so, like, big and muscular, and he led like my high school to like the state football championships, like I mean literally every year, always, and my high school won like number one football like every year. And I don't know what it was about him and me, like it wasn't like, you know, he was the most empathetic, sympathetic person in the world, but he was so kind to me. And I think he just knew like shit was rough for me. And gym, I mean, you want to talk about one of the worst places to be bullied is gym. I hated gym. And he just was so kind to me. But this one time, I always had it, I think I had it like 7th period, like last period, I remember. And we were playing baseball. And they stuck my ass way out, like in the field, you know, in the outfield. And so I'm sitting out there, like looking at the ground, picking through grass, you know, just not even paying attention. And they don't even have enough gloves. So I'm out there with no glove on, and all of a sudden they start shouting at me my name. And so I look up and they're like, it's coming your way, it's coming your way. And I look up and I see this ball. I have no mitt, you guys, right? And we're playing baseball. And they're like, it's coming your way, it's coming your way. And I just like, I was afraid it was going to hit my face. And so I went like that, and I caught the ball, and we won the game. And I remember like everybody for like 20 seconds was like real excited. Like, oh my God, Peter, Peter, Peter. And it felt so good. Like in that moment, it didn't matter who I was. It didn't matter who they were. This is my 10th grade year. But they all accepted me for that moment. And then it was gone because the final buzzer rang and class was over and we were done. And I remember, like, I thought, like, I can remember thinking that day, people are going to treat me differently after this. What a fool I was, you know? That just because I caught some baseball or something that people were going to, you know, all of a sudden be really, really nice to me, but that wasn't the case. I don't necessarily, like, I'm not, you know, the thing is that I'm not bitter about being bullied. Like, in a lot of ways, I feel like it really developed some character for me and made me a stronger person today. I feel cheated out of my experiences, you know? I feel cheated out of my high school experiences that I probably would have participated in a lot of stuff if I had had, you know, friends that were active in that. I mean, none of my friends wanted to do that stuff anyway, but I was attracted to a different group of people because I was attracted to people, like my friends that always refer to themselves as freaks. Well, I was attracted to that because really nobody else would accept me. And if it wasn't for those girls, that my close group of 5 or 6 or whatever, I wouldn't be here. I mean, those girls saved my ass. Like, they were always so protective of me, you know? And so the thing is like, so, you know, elementary school kids were just calling me names, and I was like the butt of everybody's joke. And then in junior high, it was isolation. Like, I think guys just didn't know what to do with me. So they just wouldn't talk to me. I literally had no male friends, none. Well, that's not true. I had one male friend at the beginning of high school because I was involved in this acting class. But other than, I mean, but we weren't close by any means, none whatsoever. We like rode to this class together, I think, and that was it. I think we went over to each other's houses like maybe once, and that was it, you know? And then, high school was hard. High school was really, really hard. The kids were not just mean, they were cruel. And it moved from just name calling to actual, like, physical bullying. Like, writing stuff on my lockers, putting things in my lockers, doing things to my car, pushing me in the hallways. I mean, it was horrible. It just was horrible. I was scared every day that I went to school. And it wasn't that I was scared like that for my physical well-being. Like, I mean, yes, but that goes without saying, I think. But it was that I never knew what the next thing was going to be. Like, I didn't know what the next joke was going to be. You know what I mean? But I knew that I was going to be the pit of it. Like, I can remember thinking to myself, could somebody just move to our school that they could pick on and it wouldn't just be me anymore? Because I felt like I was just it. In fact, it's interesting because later after I came out, well, later, several guys that I went to high school with, they came out too. Like, from my year, and then when I was a senior, guys that I graduated with, but also guys that were like a junior when I was a senior and a sophomore when I was a senior, there were a couple of them that said to me, thank you so much for being out in high school because you made it so much easier when I finally decided to come out. I was like, I wasn't out in high school. And they're like, you weren't? Because everybody called you names. I'm like, no, I wasn't out in high school. I had a girlfriend my senior year, right? But anyway, nobody cared. And I didn't have that relationship because I thought that that was going to protect me from anything. I really didn't know. Like, I just was so, I don't even know, like, looking back on that, what I even thought about anything to do with the world. I honestly don't. I mean, in my heart of hearts, inside, I knew I was gay. I knew I was attracted to guys. But I liked her, and I wondered a lot about her, and she was intriguing to me. And then when we started dating, like, I had fun with her, and I just, you know, was mystified by her, and I don't know. I thought that's what it was, you know? But then, when I met that guy, Rusty, who I based my book on, and he kind of did the same thing to me, like butterflies in my stomach, that girl did, that I dated, but on a whole different level. Like, then I knew. Like, then it was, like, screwed up. You know, and, like, we don't really teach that a lot either, you know? Like, I think, like, people are always like, well, what do you think we need to be teaching in schools, you know, to educate people about, you know, the LGBTQIA plus community? And I'm like, that it's no different, first of all. Like, who we're attracted to is no different than who you're attracted to if you don't fit into that. You know, that, like, it's butterflies in the stomach, it's wanting the first kiss, it's being nervous if they're going to text you or call you. I mean, it's all that, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. But we always want to jump to it being something, you know, seedier than that, which it just isn't, you know? It just isn't. It's just normal. I'm literally driving in circles, right? Like, literally driving in circles. But, you know, high school was hard. It was really, really hard. But like I've said this before, like, I had fun in high school. You know, I had fun when I was with my friends at 3:10 when the bell rang, and we were like, I mean, like, I had a lot of fun in high school after the hours, you know? But during the hours of 8 to 3 or whenever I was in school, I don't even remember what hours we went to school, I did not have fun. I was scared a lot. And, I even had teachers that were not nice to me. And I just never knew, like, I just never knew who I could trust, safety-wise. Oh, I went to go reach for the phone, and I was like, it's in the thing, it didn't even move. You know what I mean? The names that I was called were more vicious, you know? And it wasn't just you're gay, it's, I don't know, it was just on a whole different level. I don't think people really, you know, unless you go through something like that, you can't really explain to somebody what it's like. I mean, you really just can't. Like, how terrifying it is, and what goes through your head, and that you question your self-worth, and you think, I'm never going to be good enough, and all this kind of stuff, you know? But it's interesting, like, talking about it, because it's like, if I hadn't gone through it, who would I be? You know what I mean? Like, if I hadn't been bullied, I don't know that I would be who I am today. I don't know that I would look at the world the way that I look at it. And not just because I was bullied, but because of how I felt when other people were cruel to me, or did that make me more or less sympathetic or empathetic to other people? Or, you know, like, did it make me learn how to work through things on my own, or, you know, whatever. You know, I've said this on here before, but like, at the time that I got sober, I really didn't think that any of my addiction stuff had anything to do with being gay, you know, and, I mean, I believe personally that I was predisposed to be an alcoholic or an addict, but just because you're predisposed doesn't mean that you're going to end up being that way. Like, you know, just because I was the one that chose to, like, begin to start using and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people that have addiction running through their veins that are not alcoholics or addicts, you know, because they don't pick up and use, or, you know, they've used once or twice and they realize they just can't handle it and they don't like that, so they just don't engage in it anymore, you know. I have close friends of mine like that. And, but I think, like, you know, I've said this before on here, like, one of the things that, besides, like, my high school experience really being stolen from me, I mean, I could have gone to all that stuff, but I think, you know, I already felt like such an outsider. I already felt like I didn't fit in. I already felt like I wasn't part of it, which, like, feeling like part of something has always been so important to me, which is, like, why, like, being in a 12-step program, it gives me that. So I feel like I'm part of something. You know, I never felt like I was part of something except for this small group of friends that I had, thank God, you know? And so to go to a football game, or to go to, like, a pep rally, or go to, you know, I don't know, like a school I didn't go to one school dance, not one. I didn't go to homecoming, I didn't go to prom, I didn't go to winter formal, I didn't go to any. I didn't go to one school dance, you know? And because, and I'm not going to say that there wasn't parts of me that didn't want to go, because there was parts of me that early on that kind of did, but I would say that stuff's for squares. I don't do all that, you know, like, I'm alternative, I'm different, I'm an individual, I don't go do all that kind of stuff. Those people are corny. That's what I made of it, you know? And then I think I started to believe that, because I just didn't want to participate in that at all. And it was too painful to, why if I was suffering at school, would I put myself into further suffering by going to these things at night, you know, like, or after school hours? I didn't want to be with these people any more than I had to be. Which, let me just tell you what is so weird about that, right? Like, that statement that I just made, that I didn't want to be with those people anymore after school. But when the day of my graduation, I was like, it was like so weird. I remember the last day that we had classes, and, you know, like, we're walking through, and for some reason that last day, well, let me tell you one thing that happened to me around the time that I graduated. This was really beautiful. So the week that we graduated, all of the seniors did something called senior wills. And senior wills were where you could will your friends, like you would write it out and submit it. And you could will things to your friends that were like private inside jokes, right? Or like, you know, like my friends and I, we had like all these inside jokes, and like my one friend, like I would, you know, will her, like, we used to go to Wendy's every day after school, and we would get a double cheeseburger, plain, fries, and a large Frosty. So like I would will her like a double cheeseburger, you know, plain with a large Frosty, and double cheeseburger, plain, fries, and a large Frosty, or whatever, you know, a large fries and it doesn't matter, large fries and a Frosty. But you know, inside jokes, you know, little things you want to remember each other by. So we get these wills, and the wills are like, you know, 50 pages, and it would say like Judy Smith, and then it would say dash, and then she would say, you know, like you know, in my will and testament, I will, and then she would say like the person's name, you know, like Peter Monn, and then she would say, you know, if it was like my friend, she'd say like, you know, a Wendy's double cheeseburger, plain, with large fries and a large, you know, Frosty. And then Susie Smith, and it would go through all these things that she willed these people, right? And some of them were short, some of them were super long pages, some people didn't do them at all, but there was like, you know, 50 plus pages of them back and forth, you know? So everybody would pay to get them. They were like $1. And I remember I got to school that day, and if we were like if our last class was on like a Wednesday and we graduated that Friday, like it was the last day that we got them, I come into school and everybody is looking at me. And I mean, they were intent on hurting me till the very last minute. And everybody is looking at me, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why is everybody looking at me, you know? And my friend pulled me aside, and she's like, have you seen your wills? And I was like, no. And I was like, why? Well, it was several people, but my main bully, who I'm fine with today, we've like sat down, had coffee, made up, he's like super awesome. He actually, we just had Pride Day in Indianapolis, and it was so funny because he was like, he texted me the night before Pride Day, and he was like, sorry, I'm not going to see you and Alex tomorrow. And I was like, I didn't even know what he was talking about. And I was like, oh, it's going to stop, hold on. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I, like, as I was typing it, I realized he was talking about Pride Day, and I go, oh, I said, I'm not even going tomorrow. I said, Alex is out of town, and I don't really have anybody to go to except for this one person, and I don't think that I'm going to go this year. People always think I have, like, that I don't want to go to Pride Day. I love Pride Day festivals. I have had so much fun at so many different Pride Days, and Indianapolis has a huge Pride Day. I think it's like one of the top 10, if not like the largest festivals or parades in the country. It's huge. Like, Indianapolis is known for having, a true story, you can Google that. It's called Circle City Pride, and we've had a blast, but I don't want to go if I'm not going to go with a group of people, or, you know, I don't know the people that, like, I don't know it. I'm not going to just go and walk around by myself, you know what I mean? And so, and this year, like, somebody was nice enough to ask me, but I didn't know her friends, and I just thought I'd feel like, and this is where my social anxiety kicks in. I just thought, I'm going to be a tag-along. I really just don't want to go. So anyway, I was like, oh, I'm not going, blah, blah, blah. I said, why were you going to go? And he was like, well, and he's got daughters, and he was like, I was going to take my daughters down there. I wanted them to see it, and blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, oh, that's cool. He's like, yeah, we need to get together and catch up and have coffee and stuff. We're totally fine, right? Well, and it took some work, you know, like, he and I sat down. Well, I'll talk about this in a second. So anyway, he goes through this whole will thing, right? And he was our class clown. Like, everybody thought he was hilarious. He was super popular, total class clown. Everybody thought he was hilarious. So he used to call me in high school Pater. P-A-T-E-R, Pater. Like, he'd shout it down the hallways, Pater, what's up, Pater? And like we would be in like school pep rallies that we had to go to, not the ones by choice, but the ones that we were forced to go into. And I smoked in high school. We had a smoking lounge. We'd all be out there smoking, and this dean that hated all of us, he would usher in all the smokers into the front row. And as I was sitting down in the front row, this one guy would be like, Pater, hey Pater, where's your boyfriend, Pater? And like the whole audience would laugh and stuff, right? And so he always called me Pater. So my friend said, you need to read so-and-so's will. So I read his will. Now, if like somebody had willed me something like with my name, like Peter Monn, something really hateful, they would have probably taken it out. So I get to the very bottom. I'm like reading through his wills, and I get to the very bottom of it, and it says, to the entire senior class football team, I will you Pater's ass. And I was like, oh my God. Like, seriously? But it wasn't just that. It was like threaded. It was like several people, like they back and forth, like all these inside jokes. That what I realized was these people had had inside jokes about me for years. Like it was horrible. And it was like, I was literally the laughing stock of all of these people's wills. But his was the worst. And it just was really, really hard. What? Oh. God, these people are like, this guy was like looking at me, and he was like, so I did it back, and then he was like, and then I go, and the girl behind him, she goes, does the, you know, the thing with the V. I'm not gonna do it, but she did that. Anyway, so after that, I was terrified. I thought, they are not gonna let me even have a moment, right? And I was so, like I said, I was totally protective of my mother. I was scared to death that I was gonna be at graduation, that I was gonna walk across the stage, and they were gonna shout a bunch of stuff, and that my mother was gonna have to hear it, and then she was gonna know what I had gone through all those years. And I just was like, I don't even want to do this. Like, I didn't even want to go through graduation. So I'm terrified in elementary school. I'm terrified in junior high school. I'm terrified my whole senior year. My last day of school, everything is ruined for me because of these wills, which, whatever, I wasn't even allowed to have that. And then graduation, I'm terrified. I don't even want to walk at graduation because I'm so afraid that they're going to shout something. And the whole time that I'm there with my friends, and I sat between two friends of mine that I was like diehard friends with, and we were having a blast and, you know, having fun at graduation, but the whole time I'm like panicked, right? I don't want to walk across the stage. And I can remember when I got that diploma and I made it across the stage and nobody said anything bad, I was like, oh my God, thank God. So all that fear was for nothing, you know, but it was horrible. And I remember, what's really weird though, is I remember, like, you would think that I couldn't wait to get out of there and I'd turn around and never look back and be like, I hate these people. I did say I would never go to a high school reunion, which is so funny because I am probably the person today that is like most excited about looking forward to high school graduations. Next year's my 30th and I will be there. You better bet your ass I'll be there next year. I had so much fun at the 20th, and the 25th I was supposed to go to, but I judged a pageant, so I didn't go. But because the pageant was in St. Louis and I couldn't do both things, and I was really excited about doing that. So anyway, the last day of school, I remember walking around. The wills must not have been the last day. That must have been like a day or two before that they came out, because I can remember the last day was like a half day, you know, and we like were walking around. And I remember talking to people that like I hadn't talked to since like elementary school. It's like you realize, you know, all of a sudden on that last day, I'm never gonna see these people again. Like some of these people, like we're gonna walk out of these doors today, and like I'm literally not gonna see them for 20 years again. And if you're young right now and you're watching this vlog, which I very seriously doubt, but I have to tell you, I've gotten so many emails from people recently that said like, our whole family watches your vlog together, which is the coolest thing. Thank you so much. They're like, yeah, like at the end of our day, we like after dinner, we watch your vlog together, and I love that. Thank you so much. Or, you know, mothers or fathers will say like, oh, I have your vlog on in the background and my kids sit there and listen to it with me while we're doing other stuff. But if you're young, talk to those people if you're in school, you know? You're not going to see some of them. I walked out of that school that day and looked at people that I had sat in classes next to, that I had kind of been friendly with, you know, because we would see each other in the halls. Kids of mine, I went to the same school system for 12 years, kindergarten all the way through. I went to the same school district. So there were kids from kindergarten all the way through my senior year in high school that I had sat in classrooms with. Some of them, you know, that like next to me, we both had M names, you know, like, because you know how you go in alphabetical order, that we literally had been in class, at least one class a year together, for like, you know, homeroom or whatever, for 12 years, every day, you know, 5 days a week. And then all of a sudden, I mean, even if we weren't friends, and then all of a sudden, you walk out of school, and you don't see those people literally again for 20 years. I mean, you don't. Period. You just don't. And then the next time you see him, you're like, holy crap, 20 years has gone by. It's surreal, you guys. It is a weird feeling. And I remember that day, I had that feeling. It was like leaving elementary school. It was like, you know, like I knew, like after today, I'm never going to see these people again, some of them. You know, and since that day, a lot of people that I went to high school with have passed on. We have quite a few people from our graduating class that have passed away. We had the weekend after we graduated from high school, there were two girls. The weekend after, there were two girls that were in a tragic car accident, and one of them died. The weekend after we graduated, you know, like that's so strange to me to this day. And I remember seeing that Designing Women, if you've ever seen it. I used to love that show. When Suzanne Sugarbaker goes to her high school reunion, and they give her the award for most changed, and they give it to her because she's gained so much weight. And so she gets up there to give this little speech. Did you ever, if you guys know the one I'm talking about, it's the one where, like, for some reason, she goes to her high school reunion and they all come with her, and her sister's in the bathroom, and that Marjorie says something about, like, have you seen how much weight she's gained? And she goes off and she stands in front of the door while the other woman, she's talking to these other women, and she's like, did you see Suzanne Sugarbaker? She's gained so much weight, blah, 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 whatever. And then Julia Sugarbaker says to her, she, like, stands in front of the door, and she's like, I don't know why you were talking about my sister, Marjorie. But let me tell you something, Marjorie. My sister won Miss Georgia. And the night that she won Miss Georgia, she threw that baton in the air, and it spun faster and higher than any baton had ever flown before, Marjorie. And it hit all of these lights or something. And then they still to this day say that was the night the lights went out in Georgia, Marjorie. Do you remember that? Oh my God, I love that episode so much. And that was my mother and my aunt. Like, you know, they could fight like cats and dogs, but my God, they were ruthlessly loyal to each other. You did not talk about the other one, you know, to each other. I mean, my aunt could say whatever she wanted to say about my mom, but as soon as somebody else started saying it, she'd say, yeah, like, even if it was me, you don't talk about your mother that way, you know? But, you know, then Suzanne Sugarbaker gives this speech, and she's like, I know why you guys gave me the most changed award, because I've gained a lot of weight, and I'm older, and maybe I don't look the way that I did. And she, like, starts pointing people out, and she's like, you know, but you'll always, I don't know why this is getting me emotional tonight, but she's like, you know, you'll always be the same people that, you know, walked me to my front doorstep and gave me a kiss on my cheek, or, you know, the girls we cheered on the cheer team with, or whatever, you know, that, like, I'll always see you that way, like, a part of you, I'll always see that way. And you know, good, bad, or indifferent, as life goes on, what you realize is that it really isn't anything about, like, what kind of house you have, or, I mean, it really isn't. Like, I think you have to lose a lot to kind of, and I'm not talking about, like, financially, I'm talking about, like, people. You know, It doesn't matter what kind of house you have. It doesn't matter what kind of cars you drive. It doesn't matter. And all that stuff is so nice. I mean, it really is. Trips and bags and nice houses and all that stuff make it so wonderful, doesn't it? And we don't have to worry about financial insecurity and things like that. It's wonderful. But what you realize over time is that it's the people and the moments that you have with them that are rather priceless. You know, it's like that moment of time that I went to school with those people, no matter how cruel they were to me at times, you know, that there were some really, really great times in there. And that was a shared experience of 12 years of my life, you know, especially those last 3 in high school. Like, even though it was so hard for me, you know, it's like when I walked into that 20-year reunion and they looked at me so differently, and you know, that dream that you have, oh, the battery's gonna die. I gotta turn into this gas station. Hold on a second. Thank God I'm right at a gas station. I hope I don't forget what I was saying. That dream. Do you ever do that? Okay. Dream a little dream of me. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, change the battery. Maybe I won't be super emotional now, not that it matters, but you know that dream that you have where you like go to your high school reunion, and I think this was really true of me. Like, I'm not I'm not the person that's gonna say this wasn't part of my motive, because I think that it was. I think that I wanted to go and show everybody that you didn't beat me. You know, you didn't take me down. I have lip plumper in here that I want to use so bad right now. But that, you know, you didn't beat me, you didn't keep me down. And then I made it. And really, you missed out. And you know what's so funny is, that's exactly what happened. People were so nice to me. People apologized. People were like, oh my God, you have such a cool life. You know, on and on and on. So I got that dream, you know? I got that Romeo and Michelle high school reunion moment. I really did. And it was nice, and it felt justified, you know? Like, but I think what I also realized is that people change. It wasn't just that I had changed. It was that they had changed. And these people that had been cruel to me in high school, you know, it's like, they weren't the same people anymore. And what I realized was, right or wrong, and I'm not making excuses, but they were kids, and they were hurting inside. And I don't think they really did it with the intention of me. Like, I don't think they really knew, you know, how I felt, you know? I just don't think that it went any deeper than we need a laugh, you know? But, you know, I think about that, like, periods of my life, like, when I was going to school, you know, like that. Like, you know, my first 12 years, all those people that I had gone to elementary, junior high, and high school with. But especially, I would say, my high school years, you know? Like, that was so hard to say goodbye to that. And I can remember, like, seeing people in the halls that I hadn't talked to, like, really in high school at all, but we were friends, like, in junior high, and we were talking on the last day of school, you know? How weird is that? My lips are burning from that lip plumper. But then, you know, I can remember then all of my friends being over at I have two friends of mine that are twins, and they went to IU. And I remember the night before they were leaving for IU, because we used to go hang out at their house all the time. We were in my one friend's room that was a twin, and they were showing us, like, they had these what do you call them, these trunks, and they had put, like, Grateful Dead stickers and stuff all of them over them, and they were showing us all the stuff they had gotten, and it was all of us, like, sitting in that room, and, you know, all my friends were going to different colleges, and it was just my friend and I that were staying behind. And I remember I walked out that night, like, you know, for 3 years in high school, I had like walked out that door like literally almost every day, because like 1 year I was friends with both of them, the next year I was friends with one of them, like really like best friends, and the next year I was friends with the other one. The one girl that I was friends with my senior year, the twin, she was the Wendy's double cheeseburger and large fry and a large what do you call it, Frosty. That was the twin that I was best friends with my senior year. But her mom would always be sitting at the kitchen table and she'd be reading the Bible. And I can remember I walked out that night and it just hit me. Like, I was like, I'm never gonna be here again. Like, it's over. Like, this is done, you know? And I've always had such an acknowledgement of like the last day. And then the next time was, you know, I remember my master's program, because there was like a group of us that got super intensely close in our master's program. We like, you know, took all of our classes together. We like took all of our, we took summer school together, and we were just really close. There was like a bunch of us. And I thought with them, I would continue to see them, you know, like in the field working, and I haven't. Like, I mean, there's some people that I haven't seen them since my last class, but I wasn't as close with them as I was with other people, you know. And then I have to say the hardest for me in my entire life was the team that I worked with when I worked in treatment. And, you know, like, 2 of them had left before I did. We all left within, like, 6 months. Well, 6 months to a year of each other. We, like, the team, the core team that we had all worked in, like, we all left. And it's now, like, it was a completely new team. My supervisor isn't even over the department that we all worked in together anymore. And she's, like, it's something completely... The whole system has changed there. It's totally different. But I've been gone for so long now. And I remember, like, you know, they had, like, a little going away party for me when I resigned. And they gave me, like, gift certificates, and I got, like, this plaque with my name on it and stuff. And they put, like, this quote on it that I was, like, really famous for saying, like, in treatment. But, like, I thought, you know, there was a part of me that thought that we would, like, work together always. Like, we would retire together, you know? And there's only, like, besides my supervisor, she works in a different department now, but there's only one other person that still works there out of, like, 8 of us. I mean, I worked with these women while they were, like, pregnant with their kids, and there are, like, these 2 people with their hazard lights on in the middle of the street. What the hell is going on? But, you know, like, all of the women, like, one woman I was really close with, we were like co-counselors together. She was pregnant and had 2 kids, and she used to call me her second husband. Another woman, I was there for 2 of hers. My supervisor, both of her kids. Another one of my supervisors, both of her kids, pregnancies, and, you know, having them. I went to, like, I think 2 of their weddings. And, I mean, we went to tons of funerals together, conferences, traveled together. I mean, they were my family, you know? And, like, I remember the night that I left, it was a family group night. And I remember my supervisor said I didn't even have to stay for it because I had transitioned everything. She was like, Peter, just leave early. She was like, this is your last day. And I was like, no, I want to say goodbye to all my families tonight and stuff. And she was like, well, you don't have to stay. She was like, you know, you can leave. And I was like, okay. But, you know, like, she didn't have stuff, so they left, like, early in the day. And it was me and this one counselor that I'm still friends with today. And, she's, like, probably the only one that I talk to regularly. And, then this woman that worked 3rd shift, because I didn't leave till, like, 10:30, because I was, like, you know, helping them, like, after group, family group in the evenings. There was like stuff that we had to do. So I was helping the counselor that was taking my caseload over. And I had like taken almost all my stuff home from my office. So I just had like this little box of stuff in my bag. And I remember I like walked down the hallway and I like walked down by myself. And I knew it was like the last time that I was going to ever be walking down that hallway after like 13 years, and it was so weird to me, and I thought I was going to be there forever. I had to stop it because I said somebody's name, and I don't need to be saying names on here of people that I worked with. But anyway, so it was this counselor that I was friends with, that I'm still friends with today, and then it was like this woman that worked third shift. And I got my box, and I was like walking down the hallway, and this was the place that I thought that I was gonna like work at for my entire life. And she started singing that song to me that they used to sing at the end of the Carol Burnett show, like. And then I remember like getting in my car and just being like, it's over. It's just like, it's done, And I was excited, about my life, but like I was like, I didn't even know that my mom was sick when I left. Like, she hadn't even like gotten into the hospital the first time then, and then that became my life for like the next, couple months. And the next time that I saw my team was at my mom's funeral. I'll never forget. Like I went up there, like I stood, and like the first row was like every one of my mom's Pi Phi sisters that I had known my entire childhood, And then like in the back and the left, I looked out over there, and it was like my supervisor and like all of the people all my counselors that I had worked with. And they were just all like sitting there, like just like bawling their eyes out when they saw me up there. Like, we were all so supportive of each other for so long, we like shared our lives with each other. And it was just so weird, like you don't really appreciate that at the time that you're doing it, like you just don't. Like when people are in your life, you just don't appreciate like how much people mean to you, like at the time, like you just don't appreciate it, I was watching Zach Garcia, whose channel is called The Adventures of Zach and B. Who I think might be one of the finest current role models in the gay community. He and his husband, Alistair, who's in the military. If you're watching this, you guys, thanks for your service, Alistair. And his dog, Bronson, just passed away. And he did this video called The Last Drive, I think it was called. And it was so beautifully shot. It was just like, it had this song in there like called If I Needed You, and it was so weird. As soon as like it started playing, like he was like on this boat. Well, first of all, his videos are just like so beautifully shot, and he's like, this song is like called If I Needed You, and my dad used to play it to me when I was a kid, because this is like, I have it on my phone, on my iTunes. It's this Emmylou Harris song. She covered it, and it's just such a beautiful song. It's like, if I needed you, would you come to me? And he's like playing the song, and I'm like, it's like, you think about all the things that you've lost in your life, and he, like, underneath there, the reason I went and watched it, because Zach, if you're watching this, you upload so irregularly, I never know when you're going to upload, but somebody sent me a message, and they sent me an email, and they said, I didn't even know that you knew who Zach Garcia was. We've been friendly for a long time. He's such a nice guy. And they said that he puts you in his description box because something that I had said in a vlog, Zach heard it and said that he, you know, it was helping him, and we even kind of talked a little bit about it, but it was the idea of that, you know, you don't, when people say to you, you need to move on, that you need to move on, right? You need to move on. But it's not about moving on, it's about moving through. And I was watching it tonight, you know, like, and at the end of the video, he gets Bronson's ashes, and he says, so we're gonna take a ride. I mean, I almost couldn't even watch it, you guys. It was like so painful knowing that PP has heart disease, and then I'm gonna like literally be having to do this with PP at some point, you know. And I'm like watching this, and he's like, so before he goes out and does it, he goes, so I'm gonna put him in the car and the box, and we're gonna go for a drive because that's what we did, you know. And I thought, the idea of like moving on and moving through is like, don't rush me. Like, just let life slow down a little bit, you know? Stop rushing me. But I think that it takes like loss and tragedy and sadness to really understand that, to be like, don't rush me, you know? Like, I'm not moving on. I want to stay right where I'm at right now for a second. And when I'm ready to move through this to wherever I'm supposed to go next, I will, and I'm going to carry with me how I feel. And I feel very, very blessed in my life that, you know, whether it was leaving a relationship, or whether it was losing a parent, or whether it was leaving a job, or leaving school, or whatever, that innately somehow I allowed myself to sit in it and allow myself to, you know, almost kind of like a bus stop, you know, for life, and like sitting on that bus stop until I'm ready to get on the next bus and keep on moving. But I ain't there yet, you know, and maybe I need to sit exactly where I'm at right now and just really, really feel it. And watching that video tonight, you know, like, I've said on here a lot in my videos that I wish I could just turn down time. I wish I could slow it down. I can't stop things that are going to happen in the world. I can't stop the fact that I'm going to lose people or lose pets, or, you know, that change is going to occur. But I can honor it. And I think that truly appreciating my life is not letting those things go by missed. I think that moving on is not recognizing the importance that something or somebody had to you or meant to you in your life, and moving through, it's almost like walking through a cobweb and having bits of the cobweb on you. I want to go through the cobweb. I want to experience all of the feelings, the good and the bad, because, you know, like, I have a friend of mine that used to say to me, a beautiful singer that I'm friends with, and she used to say, if I can't cry about it, it didn't mean anything to me. And she wasn't talking about, like, literally crying. She was just saying that, like, if I'm feeling something and it doesn't evoke an emotion from me, then am I really honoring it by what it meant to me in my life anyway, or did it just not mean anything? I don't want to move through life and not feel things. I don't want to move on from stuff. Sometimes I'm not ready to move on from stuff. And that's okay. It's my business, nobody else's. Sometimes I want to just sit in my shit and feel it. And a lot of times, not sometimes, a lot of times, often, that has been really, really healthy for me, you know? to recognize the endings, to recognize, because when you recognize the endings, you recognize the beginnings, you recognize the duration of what that meant to you. All of those things I said tonight, you know, I don't want to forget those things. I don't. Every relationship in my life that I've had, whether it be, you know, with a coworker or a friend or a romantic relationship or whatever, every relationship I've had has had a beginning, you know, and a middle and an end if it doesn't exist anymore, and it's still ongoing if it does. I want to recognize all of that. I want to look at the whole thing. I remember talking to my friend, the one that lives in Denver, and we were talking about my old roommate, and so, you know, back in the day, I had like followed a lot of Grateful Dead shows and stuff like that, and she was real jealous of that. She always wanted to do something like that. So she went on tour for the Warped Tour and ended up meeting Rob Zombie and becoming like hanging out with all his people, and that's where she ended up meeting her husband, and that's why she lives where she's at today. And I remember, she lives in Germany today, and I remember talking to my friend, and we were talking about her because he was really good friends with her too, and I said, man, she's had a crazy life. And I'll never forget, he looked at me. We were sitting on his back patio out there, and we were smoking cigarettes. We used to call them Bernadettes. I don't know why we called them Bernadettes, but we were smoking Bernadettes. Why did we call them that? But anyway, oh, I know why we used to call them Bernadettes, because we loved that movie, Waiting to Exhale, and Angela Bassett played a Bernadette in the movie, and Bernadette, that scene when she's smoking a cigarette in that white robe right before she gets her hair cut, she's got all of her husband's stuff in that car, and the police officer comes up to her and says, she takes a cigarette and she like flicks it, and he says, ma'am, in the state of Arizona, you're not allowed to burn things in your yard unless it's trash. And she goes, it is trash. So we used to always call cigarettes Bernadettes because we loved her character so much, because she was so strong in that movie. But, you know, and I think another thing is showing strength through weakness. I think sometimes people don't understand that, but like sometimes when you give in, it's like when you find your strength, you know? But I remember like sitting out there, we were like smoking on his back patio. I was visiting him. It was actually that summer that I went out there for Pride. It was like exactly 11 summers ago. And we were talking about her, and I said, man, she's lived a crazy life. And he goes, yeah, but she's lived a life. He's like, she has lived a life. And she has lived a life, you know? And she's done a lot of good. She's done a lot of really, really great things for people. And, but she's lived a life, you know? I want to live a life. I want things to mean something to me. And that doesn't mean that I have to live a life by traveling all over the world or whatever. I can live in my own little place and have my life be my dogs and my husband and going out to dinner. But I don't want those things to not mean something. And I think that when we just move on from it, just move on, it's like, you know, it made me happy in the video to hear him say that, because when you get it and you get that, how painful it is to move through it, because what that's saying is I'm going to acknowledge my pain and feel it and move through it. And this was not my I didn't come up with it. This was my friend who had lost a child, and I called her when my mom died. I said, people are telling me to move on. She goes, no, we don't ever move on. We move through. But we carry remnants of them with us forever, you know, you never forget. And that just so resonated with me, you know. And when I heard him say it in the video today, and I thought to myself, and here it is, somebody passed it on to me, I passed it on to him, and now he's passing it on to someone else. And that's how the world should work. And that's how we get better, and that's how we improve, you know. Life has its really, really tough times, but if one thing has been proven to me in life, that when I'm going through something, you know, I am such a believer in the Maya Angelou statement. I really, it's one of my favorite quotes of life. When you are going through one of the greatest tragedies of your life, look up and say thank you, because you are about to learn one of the most valuable lessons you've ever learned. When I lost my mother, it was probably the most painful thing I've ever gone through in my entire life. It still, to this day, is extremely painful. The lessons I learned by having to go through that were unbelievable, you know? And then losing my aunt and losing my uncle and feeling alone, because I do, except for my husband. But, like, I'm talking about my history. Like, I feel like I have no history at times, you know? My dad's not big on talking about stuff. I mean, he'll talk about it from time to time, but he's just not big on talking about stuff from the past. So I don't feel like I really have Caroline's not big on talking about stuff from the past, and she doesn't know a lot of it, you know? So, and my dad wasn't there for the last, 30 years of my mom's life, so he doesn't know that past. So really, I only have, like, Susie, my mom's friend, that I talk to about stuff, but, what I realized, I think, through all that is I don't want to miss the moments. It's like that country song. I think it's, it might be Kenny Chesney, I think. I could be wrong. But it's called Don't Blink. And it's such a great song, and it's talking about, like, don't blink or you'll miss it. I don't want to miss stuff anymore, I feel like I've missed so much. And not because I didn't live it, but because I wasn't paying attention. I just wasn't paying attention. And then by the time that you have figured out it's too late, So today, I try to live my life by, like, not missing those things. And being grateful for the experience. No matter, how tough it is at times, because a lot of stuff that we go through is really, really hard in life. And yes, I'm grateful for going through stuff because of the experience, but not everything am like, yes, I'm so happy I went through that. No, a lot of it's bullshit, and I didn't want to have to go through any of it. But the majority of it, the things that have brought me joy, the people, things like that in my life, my dogs, and the places I've traveled and the places I've lived, and, yeah, I want to remember that stuff. I want to, don't you? But I also know that I have to get to a point where, like, not every time I talk about something, or every time I tell a story, or every time, like, I, evoke a memory, that it brings me to tears, Like, I don't know. Tonight I think I just needed to cry. Do you ever just feel like you need to cry? Like, and that is totally fine. Sometimes I just need to cry, and I think tonight I just needed to cry, so it's probably good that I talked about this. Honest to God, like, when I get on this vlog, I never know, like, what I'm going to talk about. But I kind of always just go into it with, like, whatever I'm supposed to say is what I'm going to say tonight. I don't know. It seems like such a small piece of advice. It seems like commonplace, like we should all know it anyway, to not take, like, life for granted. But I have to say that there have been many times in my life that I've taken my life for granted. So if I could give one piece of advice, I would say that I have learned, don't take it for granted. Don't take the moments. It's all of it, It's all of it. Somehow compounded together, this beautiful thing. Even the parts that aren't always, so happy. And I do think it's the bitter and the sweet, And I have an amazing life today, and I'm so grateful for it. I really am. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be sadness in my life. I've gone on long enough. This is all Zach's fault from watching that video tonight. get a chance, you guys should go watch it. His channel is called The Adventures of Zach and B. And B is Bronson, his dog. And it's the latest video that he has up. And it's called like Our Last Trip. Or Our Last Drive, I think, or Ride. It's a really beautiful video. And it's really heartfelt what he says in there. And it's really... I needed to hear what he had to say tonight. So... okay, now I'm going to go listen to my serial killer book. I have a hair appointment in the morning, so I can't be staying up too late tonight, or I won't make it to my hair appointment. So I got to get up in the morning. But I'm going to go listen to my... I'm going to go from sadness, summertime sadness, and weeping to John Wayne Gacy, which is one of the best true crime books I've ever read in my entire life, Killer Clown. I think currently next to I'll Be Gone in the Dark and Evil Has a Name, I think it's probably my favorite book that I've read that's a true crime book. Well, maybe Cruel Sacrifice by Aphrodite Jones, which took place in Madison, Indiana, but it is really good. So anyway, I hope you guys are... oh my god, it's the beginning of the weekend. I hope you guys are having... what time? Oh, I was like, is it gonna stop? I hope you guys are having a fantastic Friday, an amazing Friday, unless you have other plans. Don't have other plans. Have a fun weekend. Don't take life for granted. Do something today that's gonna make you really, really happy, that you'll look back on today and be... is today the 13th? No, it's the 14th. Oh, it's Father's Day this weekend too. And, you know, do something that's going to really make you happy today. Something that you'll look back on and be like, you know what? Today was a good day. And if nobody else has told you this today, I love you. Look in the mirror, say it to yourself, believe it, pass it on to somebody else. I want to say one last thing. In watching Zach's video, he talked about how he's really been struggling lately. And I don't know if he watches my vlogs. I don't know how often he watches my vlogs. But Zach, if you're watching this, to you, and to anybody else out there, I say every day in my videos, you know, if nobody else has said this today, I love you. But I also want to say to people that are struggling today, that you just don't know how you're going to get through what you're getting through. There is an end to your struggle. And you will get through it in a positive way, and there will be days of laughter again. Trust me. I've had some of the worst days of my entire life that I just could not imagine a day when it was going to get any better. And then there were days after that I couldn't remember what that horrible day felt like. It's going to get better. And I know that I can't make it any better. And if I could take it away from people, I would, and I can't. And I think that sometimes what I've learned is that I've just had to go through some really tough shit in my life. And at the time, I don't even know why. And sometimes the horrible stuff that we go through really doesn't have any... We have to make up lessons in our mind that come from it. Because we can't make sense of something, you know? When we lose someone that we love or care about, that's senseless, you know? It's painful. My husband every day is just a mess over losing his friend, you know, still to this day. And, but you move through it. And there is another side over there, you know? And so I hope for all of you out there that are struggling, that you keep holding on. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Love ya.